Welcome to the Get Great Health Podcast, where we talk everything fitness, nutrition, and biohacking, and everything in between. Today, I sat down with a personal friend, Abbey Hand. Abbey is a preconception health consultant and coach, a published author, and she specializes in helping women and couples prepare for pregnancy through positive lifestyle change and health optimization. She supports clients using current research, traditional medicine, and natural philosophies. Additionally, Abbey incorporates biometric tracking, epigenetic data, and other valuable tools in her complex systems approach to coaching. She also draws on her own autoimmune disease and pregnancy experiences to empower folks and help them navigate the quagmire surrounding perinatal and chronic disease care. Abbey believes optimizing the health of both parents prior to conception helps build strong families and communities, creating a healthier, more resilient world. Abbey received her undergraduate education from Vassar College and a Master's of Science in Nursing from the University of Texas, with a focus on maternal health. She's worked as a nurse in labor and delivery, functional medicine under Dr. Eleanor Womack, and precision medicine under Drs. Daniel Stickler and Mikra Hamilton. A forever student, she is also a certified epigenetic coach, functional medicine certified health coach, and is currently working on her woman's herbal educator certification. Most importantly, she is a mother to an amazing little boy and a partner to an incredible husband. The Hand family, including 3 dogs, splits their time between their Austin home base and their ranch in the Texas Hill Country, where they hone their skills of self-sufficiency and work to restore sensitive ecosystems. They believe personal health cannot be truly obtained without also addressing environmental health. And Abbey says she's happiest when she's tromping around in the woods looking at plants. And having known Abbey personally, I can tell you she is an incredibly knowledgeable human being, and I was so happy to do this podcast with her. So without further ado, here is the incredibly, absolutely amazing Abbey Hand.
There's a little bit of madness to my method. Many falling off that fine line that I'm treading. I risk anything to be great, and I'm not letting.
Selfishly, I have been looking forward to this podcast so I can pick your brain and steal some of this amazing knowledge that you have.
You're really setting the bar high there.
And I expect you to clear it with...
I'm excited to be here. I know, right?
All right, Abbey. So first thing, I just want to start off, could you just give us a little bit of a background on how you got into health and wellness?
Yeah. Do you want a little background? Because I actually have a lot of background.
Whatever you want to give.
I'll try to be succinct. So I'm Abbey Hand. I am a registered nurse with a master's in nursing, focus on maternity nursing. And how did I get into the health and wellness space? I was diagnosed with lupus about 12 years ago. And even as a nurse, found that navigating the healthcare space was really challenging. Like, even with a master's degree, my experience working within the same healthcare system that I was trying to navigate, it was still really complex and really frustrating. So I was turned on to these resources where a lot of us started. For me, it was Tim Ferriss's books and the podcasts and all of these people that he had coming on, exposing me to new ideas. So I left conventional nursing. I was a labor and delivery nurse with the intent of becoming a midwife, and decided that with my health stuff, with my values, with my strengths, that wasn't going to be the right fit for me. So instead, I went into functional medicine here in Austin. I worked with Dr. Eleanor Womack for a couple of years. And that was kind of the initiation into the wellness sphere for me. And it was like drinking through a fire hose. There's so much information in this space. There's like no wrong answer. We can go a million different ways. And so for a couple of years, it was me trying all of these things that I had access to, exploring, what does it look like to mess with my diet? What does it look like to take handfuls of supplements? Okay, let's bring some peptides on board. How about some LDM? Like anything that was available to me, I tried. And that was really successful for me. I was able to get myself into lupus remission, which is amazing. Off medications, found a care team that really supported me once I learned how to advocate for myself and navigate the healthcare system better. All to say that my biggest takeaway was that we need to be practicing proactive medicine. We need to, not preventative medicine where we're like screening for these things that are already happening, but stepping back and saying, oh, how do I prevent all this junk in the first place? How do I prevent chronic disease? What are the steps that I can be taking now to age in a healthy way that doesn't set me up for all of these things that, our later generations are facing right now? So that's kind of one aspect of how I got to where I am. Another aspect is that having my master's in maternity nursing, doing the L&D work, and being like kind of anti-authoritarian. I was like, I do not like the perinatal space. I do not like how women are being treated. And I got real riled up. And so in 2019, I left my functional medicine job and I started my own private practice doing health coaching. At that point, I was also certified through the Functional Medicine Coaching Academy, which is a branch of IFM. So I had my nursing license, a master's, and also my FMC-HC. So I felt really well equipped to start helping people on my own.
That's a lot of letters right there.
Lots of letters, right? I also am a certified epigenetic coach as well. And that's like a whole nother like side rail story. But I really wanted to support women in just like the foundational health aspects, the things that we're not really taught, or the things that we kind of lose along the way. As I'm sure you've experienced, the wellness space is expanding and growing so fast. And from my perspective, that's amazing, right? We've got all of these tools and resources at our disposal. We're really stepping into doing the consciousness work with psychedelics, and that's amazing. And we're leaving a lot of people behind because we need people to stay back over here and work on the foundations with folks. And that's kind of where I fall in, is really using genetics, using, lab work to really help people set solid foundations for their health. Because I think, a lot of these health figures are they're so far beyond it. They've forgotten that not everybody's at their level. So we need folks like me to help initiate and integrate new folks who are just starting their journey, to get off on the right foot. And a big tool that I like to use is the epigenetics there, which is really fun. So instead of that fire hose feeling, it's a little more targeted. These are the recommendations based on your genetics. This is a much more simplified and streamlined approach to managing your health and establishing those foundations. The other aspect of this, and the big aspect, is my work with, so I initially worked a lot with autoimmune folks because that was my experience, and those are the people who were drawn to me. And I realized in like February of 2020 that I was not working in alignment with, how I could be of best service, and decided that I was going to rebrand and pivot into preconception in the perinatal space. And that's where I am mostly today. But February of 2020, big things happened just after that, including having a surprise pregnancy myself. So I really immersed myself in the perinatal space with my clients, with my business, and then also the fact that I was pregnant and navigating all of this during the height of the pandemic. So very intense and amazing learning years. And I am excited to be able to guide other folks who want to kind of shore up some sort of health priority, want to make some changes there, or just want to optimize their health before they get pregnant, because we know the benefits of health at the time of conception. So that's a very long-winded answer to what I do now.
I love it. And now I have like 30 more questions based on everything you said. I want to know so much more. First thing that I want to jump out to it because it seems to be such a more common theme now in that, so like biohacking, functional medicine, all these quote unquote like wooey sciences are starting to become more mainstream. And we're seeing a lot more people that started in the allopathic world, such as yourself in nursing, transfer
Mhm.
over into functional medicine, into these sciences that 10 years ago people were saying it's those are frauds, it's all quack science, it's all pseudoscience, none of it's real. Why do you think, like, I know you personally got into functional medicine, you explained that, but like, why do you think there's such a shift now of this allopathic medicine going into functional medicine?
I have several answers for that. And the biggest one that I have experienced personally, and I've seen working with my own clients and with my own family members, is just this attitude towards clients, patients advocating for themselves and not being okay in the functional medicine realm, asking questions and being curious, and the functional world not taking that as an affront to their ego. But the biggest thing is the connection piece. I think that this alternative pathway, this alternative model of healthcare really focuses on client-centered care, meeting the client where they're at, but also just listening to their experiences and where they're at and what's going on and being empathetic. The traditional allopathic model, the insurance-based model, just isn't set up for that. And it's not, I don't want to go into this whole thing about like being anti-allopathic medicine, because I'm not. It has its place. And the doctors and the nurses in that system are suffering. They don't have the bandwidth, they don't have the time to give to their patients and their clients in the way that people need to heal. And it's again, it's great for emergency services and things outside of chronic health and wellness.
Yeah, and I agree with you so much. It's such a churn and burn model now in the system of allopathic care. It's doctors given like 7 minutes to see a patient, and
Yep.
they're supposed to figure out everything that that patient needs in those 7 minutes. And
And if they don't meet certain patient thresholds, then they get penalized.
I know, which
They
is
have to they get docked pay. At least that was the case as I was exiting the allopathic model.
which I mean, I've never heard that before, but I did know like they could get penalized from like insurance companies, from like just lose money just because they want to care a little bit more about patients. And I think that's
Right.
probably the biggest issue I have is not so much like finding a good doctor, it's that good doctors are forced out of the system because the system itself is broken.
Yep.
So yeah, like
100%.
I didn't know that like they could get penalized monetarily too. So that's just another reason that I
That
think,
was the case at the within the healthcare system that I was working at here in Austin back. I guess that was almost a decade. That was over a decade ago. So hopefully things have changed. But that is definitely a part of our recent history. That is unfortunate. Who knows what shenanigans they have now?
yeah, I mean, our health system's only been getting better, especially the last 3 years,
Totally, totally.
so much. So then there's one more thing I want to ask about in your background that stood out to me. You have an anti-authoritative personality, and you decided to go into an industry that is very heavily regulated.
Yeah, that's why I'm sitting over here in my like little gray space and personalized medicine. Yeah. So it's funny because I am very much a ground noser. Like I want to follow the rules as much as I can, unless I see it as like a weird power ego dynamic, and then I'm like, oh no, 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 we're not doing this. And I will find every way I can to circumvent the system.
I love that so much because we need more people like that, Abby. We need more people
Right?
like you because
We
question
need people
authority.
in service to people, right?
Mhm.
Yep,
Yeah, service people, not the system.
exactly.
So then I want to move on to your rebranding, your new you, hand
Yeah.
wellness, the transition into preconception medicine. So what exactly is preconception and why is it important?
So first, I'm going to step back, and I don't do medicine. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nurse
Yes.
practitioner. I can't diagnose or treat, but just for full transparency. I do have my
Okay.
master's, but I am not a licensed practitioner in that way. Um,
Okay, I'll
anyway,
rephrase. Preconception coaching.
yeah, thanks.
Mhm.
Um, what is preconception health? From my perspective, preconception health is basically the health of anyone at reproductive age. I know that's like super, super vague. That's kind of like the broad definition. In practice, what that means to me is um, working with people to optimize their health or overcome some sort of health challenge with the goal of having a healthy and safe and joyful pregnancy experience. So it is not about fertility necessarily, but it definitely encompasses fertility and hormone health and all of those aspects. But it's really this broader, like generalized wellness and foundational health. That's huge. That's a key component here. But for couples who, want to get pregnant in the next 3 to 12 months. Um, and why I think this is so important is because I don't know if you know the statistics, but globally and in the United States, about 50%, 50% of pregnancies are unplanned. And I mean, that happened to me. We had a surprise kiddo, and I'm a nurse. I know all the things, and we still had a surprise pregnancy. And thankfully, I was at the healthiest that I had ever been. I was in remission from lupus. And so looking back at all of the things that I did to promote health for myself and for my child, and the things that my husband was doing at that time too, like we are so lucky. And I just want to help other folks get to that place of health for so many reasons, right? So your health at the time of conception influences not only, your ability to get pregnant, the success of conception, but the health of your pregnancy, the amount of symptoms, pregnancy related symptoms that you're having or not having, any of these other conditions that maybe we have before being pregnant, like diabetes, autoimmune disease, that's a big one. The more that we can support those issues before becoming pregnant, the fewer issues we have to deal with while pregnant, right? And you're not just dealing with yourself, but you're dealing with the health of your child. And I think that the biggest piece of this is the more that we can work on our health before pregnancy, the better, the more supportive the foundational health of your child is going to be. Like you are setting up your child with lifelong health just by doing some like amazing things to support your own health. Like it's a win-win situation from my perspective.
Do you ever encounter, so this is something I've encountered with more female clients. Do you ever encounter that you have to reframe their perspective on it? Because I feel like a lot of women are very giving. And
Mm.
when you start to tell them like, you need to take care of yourself, I've had many female clients that are like, I don't like I want to be able to give more. I don't want to just do more stuff for myself. Have you ever encountered that with women that like want to be parents or like you have to reframe them like do this for your kid, not just for yourself?
Yeah, I think right. We use a lot of tools. We use a lot of motivators. And I just try to give all of the facts, right?
Mhm.
Yes, your behaviors now are impacting your child's future health for their lifespan. Um, I mean, that's pretty powerful in itself. And also, like, really focusing on the self advocacy piece about self care and self care being like, sleeping, eating foods that support and nourish our body and support our goals. Like, very simple things that, um, as a woman and as a mom and as someone who has autoimmune disease, like, very apparent how positive those things are, and also incredibly hard to do in practice sometimes, right? I mean, I I had lupus. So there were very overt behaviors or lack of behaviors that drove that disease process. not to be blaming myself or anyone else out there who has autoimmune disease, but there was just this disconnect between, my behaviors, my lifestyle, and how that was affecting my personal health. So I do use a lot of, I'm very open about my own journey and my own health stuff. And I talk about that a lot with my clients as kind of a framework. And also, yeah, like if you don't want to do this for yourself, think about it for your child, for your pregnancy, for, your relationship and your household, however that looks to you.
All right. So do it for yourself. Make yourself healthy for your kid's future, for your own future. And yeah, I feel like that needs to be established more. So many of us aren't trying to do stuff just for ourselves, even though that'll help everyone else so much more by being a better you.
Right.
So after that, do you have any tips or like what are your favorite things you like to do with your clients that you think are the biggest rocks that they can do to increase their health? What are those big levers that they can pull?
Oof. Every person is different and it really depends on, that client-centered care. Where are you starting from? What are your goals? And also sleep, right? Most of us are not sleeping enough, and most of us are not getting enough protein. I think those are two of the things that really I've seen clients kind of like wake up and be like, oh, I feel so much better so quickly after making sure that I'm like going to bed earlier, getting all that deep sleep that happens before midnight, actually eating enough protein, moving their bodies in whatever way feels good. Those are really and hydrating, right? Like simple foundational things, drinking enough water throughout the day. It's amazing, like the impact on brain fog just by drinking water. And I know that none of this is like interesting or sexy or fun, but it's just like these are the foundational things that I find that even folks in the wellness space are losing sight of.
Yeah, I mean, you can do all the fun things like getting sun on your butthole, taking a handful of supplements, buying thousands of dollars worth of red lights. But like you said, like
Exactly.
the boring foundational stuff, that's, I agree, like it moves it the most. Sleep, movement, food.
Yep. Stress reduction, just doing it. And it sucks, right? You have to go do the work. And we don't want to hear that in our field. Like we want to think that I can just go like microdose and all of my mental health issues are going to go away. I want to like I can take vitamin D and I don't have to do anything to support my immune system. It's just we have to do the work and it's hard. The things themselves aren't hard. The principles aren't hard, but actually doing it, and that's where the coaching comes in, right? How do we implement these things into your existing life? We're not here to just like blow up your routine and your rituals. We want to come in here and very thoughtfully, very mindfully be an additive, right? We want to figure out how to make this efficient and fun and successful. So to that note, I do some coaching with tirzepatide, right? Weight loss peptide. And folks, they want to just like lose weight really fast. Like that's not the goal here. It's not sustainable. The tirzepatide is a tool and we have to figure out how to use it appropriately. It's supposed to give you the space that you can do the work and make the changes that you need to make outside of that. The tirzepatide is not going to do it. Just like, here at working at Kuya, one of my other projects, it's the same with like the ketamine. The ketamine isn't going to do the work for you. You still have to do the work, and this is a tool. That's the same with everything else in the wellness space. The supplements, the sauna, the cold plunge, they're all wonderful. But like, if you're going to bed at 2 a.m. and waking up at 6 every morning, none of this stuff is going to be very useful to you.
Yeah, I think a big problem people have, especially when they're learning all these different modalities of increasing their health, is they view all these things as answers when they should view everything as a tool to help them uncover the answers.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
Yeah, I agree with that all the way. And tirzepatide, I'm so happy you mentioned that. I just did a whole training on this the other day.
Oh, nice.
it is such a fascinating peptide.
Mhm.
So there's a few different weight loss peptides like semaglutide that's becoming popular. Why is it you choose to work with tirzepatide and not like some of the other ones like tesofensin and um, just a ton of them?
Yeah. Um, so why do I like tirzepatide? Let me count the ways. One, it's like legal, right? We can prescribe
Mhm.
it. So through my medical director, so I partner with a couple of different practices where we use tirzepatide or semaglutide. Um, I like tirzepatide specifically because like the GI symptoms are less with tirzepatide for most people. It's demonstrated better efficacy. It's demonstrated less muscle mass loss compared to semaglutide. Um, there is data emerging about its effect on mood and mental health, which is amazing. Um, and primarily, like it's shown to be more effective. So why aren't we using our best option here? Um, Another thing that I found personally from tirzepatide is it's kind of like I describe it similar to like the conversations that we have in meditation or yoga, right? It gives us this pause, it gives us this space to make decisions that are more in alignment with our goals and the work that we're trying to do. So a lot of people view this as, it's just a weight loss thing. But I truly think that done in a very intentional and supported way, um, it can really promote physical and mental health. So, making sure that people are getting enough protein, that they're being active, that they're not, totally suppressing their appetite. Like you still need you to eat, you still need you to nourish yourself, but it's giving you just that little bit of space. So that it's kind of like um, tearing down that automated response, that mechanism. It's like you're just grabbing for whatever insert addictive food here. But yeah, I'm a huge supporter of tirzepatide.
Yes, I am as well. I'd really like to recommend it to anyone that wants to use it as a tool for weight loss. But again, also the caveat, like you said, you still have to make sure you are eating properly. I would say this is even more important when you are taking these peptides because you will be eating less and you need to make sure the food you are eating is very nutritionally dense. No McDonald's
Yep.
and fries. Um, and also, you kind of mentioned like addictive behavior and cravings. I found that so
Mhm.
odd. Like the research is showing that like semaglutide and tirzepatide can now kind of be used to help mitigate and reduce addictive behaviors. Arthur C. Clarke once said, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And in the realm of enhancing our bodies and minds, limitless life nootropics is turning what once seemed like science fiction into reality. Imagine having the power to fine tune your brain and body to their peak potentials, losing weight, gaining muscle, and sharpening your mind in ways you never thought possible. With limitless life nootropics, this isn't just imagination, it's within your grasp. Their lineup of peptides and nootropics are designed with one goal in mind to help you break through your limits. Whether it's mental edge you're after or a physical transformation, they've got something to make you feel like the best version of yourself. And here's the best part. As a listener of Get Great Health, you get an exclusive offer. Use the promo code GGH15 at checkout on limitlesslifenootropics.com and you'll save 15% off any order. It's time to explore what your body and mind can really do when you remove the barriers. Don't just dream about achieving your peak health and performance, make it a reality. Visit limitlesslifenootropics.com today and remember to use the code GGH15 to unlock your exclusive savings. Because with the right tools, the possibilities for what you can achieve are truly limitless.
From a personal experience, I have significantly like decreased my alcohol consumption, and I'm not a big drinker to begin with, but um, I just it's like whatever. I don't need it. I'm not drawn to it in social situations in the way that I used to be. And same for like one of my pain points is I've got a 3-year-old and we've got lots of snacks around the house. And I was finding that I was just, whenever he would sit down to have a snack, I would have a snack with him. And they were foods that weren't necessarily in alignment with my goals. And the tirzepatide kind of really helped me like take that pause, say, do I really want this, or am I just doing it because I'm bored, tired, want to engage with my child? You know, those questions. And how do I put something else in its place?
I really like that. Because I also have children in the house who also have snacks in the house. Now
Right.
some snacks I'm just like I couldn't care less, but like when there's ice cream in the house, I'm just like I'm gonna eat
Mm,
that ice cream. Doesn't matter.
yep.
Uh,
I am gonna
So
steal your ice cream. That's yep.
um, with that said, I kind of we're talking about preconception, but you just brought up eating your kids' snacks. This is a big topic, like for myself, and a ton of people have asked me. Is like they ask me all the time as well. Like, do you get your kids to eat healthy like you? Or like, have you found like good snack alternatives for your kids? And is there any resistance to those?
Yeah, that is hard. And I will also like remember I am a nurse and I've been in functional medicine and I'm really big into nutrition. My husband is a dietitian and we feed our kid basically whatever he'll eat, right? Like part of my history is like, being in the functional world and being with a doctor who um, is really passionate about food's effect on health and maybe a little overboard. And I found myself, after I left working with her, found myself very restrictive, not only in like my foods, but also, in over exercising. And I just lost sight of balance. So then after having a kid, I was like, I don't want to impart that crap onto my son, right? I want him to have the balance. I want him to have a healthy relationship with food. I want him to see food as nourishment and also understand that, there are these like social and quality of life foods that are in our culture, and that's okay. So having a kid, being mindful of the fact that I have autoimmune disease, my husband has autoimmune disease, our child is at increased risk for autoimmune disease. So yes, I want to make sure that he is eating a nutrient dense diet, and that he likes eating that way. And also understanding that it's not good for like my mental health, to have my child be restricted. And it's not good for, his socialization or, just being a human in the world. So short answer is we try to really focus on nutrient dense foods. Our kid eats a lot of blueberries and a lot of elk. We're very lucky. He eats a lot of protein. He eats a lot of elk and a lot of venison because we're both hunters. And then he also eats like processed snacks. And we just try to make sure that he likes food and he has a good relationship with food.
Yeah, and I mean goldfish are essentially that's fish, right? That's a
Totally.
just in
I'm just
different
gonna like
shapes.
sprinkle it with omega with fish oil.
I'm a little jealous that your kid gets to eat elk. Like I want to eat more elk, so I'm a little jealous of your kid. Uh, do you find that like because I know this about you, I don't think we've ever really talked about it. Do you find that being able to go hunting and bring back food has shaped like how your kid sees food? Is it would because like I know he's not at that age to like really appreciate things yet. But like,
Yeah.
do you think like there's that? Does he notice the difference between like the food you went out and hunted versus like grocery store bought like meats?
I don't know if he's like aware enough yet. That will be interesting to watch. Venison was always like a part of my upbringing, and I never thought about it any differently. It was just a different animal source. Um, but that's a great question and something we'll just like kind of track with him. But yeah, he hasn't had a whole lot of exposure to the aspects of hunting. I did get a deer this past Thanksgiving, and my dad brought him out to where we were and just kind of hung out as we were like field dressing, and he saw the deer and was like, okay, I'm ready to go do something else. And they like, went for a walk, and like not really like a big thing. And we're trying not to make it a big thing. We're trying to normalize it. And then later in the day, he was like, are we going to eat that deer? Yes, yes, we are. It's very perceptive of you, little 3-year-old. So yeah, he will have a great education in what it looks like to, source your own food. And I'm so grateful for that. So grateful for that access and the education and having a partner who's awesome at it and loves it just as much as I do.
That's incredible that you're developing that in them now, because I really feel like there is such a disconnect between modern society and like where our food comes from.
Yeah,
So
100%.
that's incredible. Like at 3, he already knows, oh, you were cutting apart the deer and then I'm going to eat it later. It's like he's
Yep.
kind of seeing like that whole life cycle. It's like
Yeah.
I'm sure he's seen deer running in places, seen him alive, saw him dead, and he's going to see him on his plate, which is
Well, and then it's funny because he starts asking about other animals, like, do we eat that dog? And I'm like, nope, we don't eat the dog. And like, how do you explain to a 3-year-old the difference between like companion animals and wildlife? It's been funny to navigate. He asks some very perceptive questions.
I can see that's difficult, especially like if you were to go to like other countries, they would eat a dog. So that's more
Yeah,
like an
right.
American cultural thing. So then
Yeah.
trying to explain culture to a 3-year-old, I don't even think I would know how to do that. Oh,
I don't know. You just try to answer the questions as they pop up.
all right, so I think we got a little off track. I love talking with you about like kids. Got my own, so always want to know more. But all right, talked about preconception health. Something that I've heard about, but I don't really hear too many people talk about. It's like you mentioned you're helping people get to optimal health to have a child. Is there a difference, like in a person's health, particularly in women, between when a woman has her first child and when she's going to have her second child? Is there some differences you would give to a woman for her first versus her second?
So I think from the conventional perspective, the answer is no. From my perspective, right? And you've seen this, right? So a woman has a child. She has been like, she's been growing this human. And then if she chooses to breastfeed, then she is like literally like losing parts of herself, losing like you can almost feel the minerals being leached from your bones through your breast milk, right? You are what is keeping this tiny human potato alive, right? We are being depleted at our core, physically, emotionally, sleep deprivation, all of these things. And it takes a lot longer to heal and repair and thrive again, right? I don't know what your household's experience has been, but for me, like it took a long time to get back in the world and really restore my health. And I'm still working on it. Um, but I think this idea that you know, I think the conventional wisdom from allopathy that, women should wait only 18 months before having another kid, I just don't think that you can heal well enough in that short period of time. I think it takes a lot longer, um, unless you're doing it very, very intentionally. So yes, I do think there's a difference between, first kiddo and subsequent kiddos. Um, but I don't necessarily do anything differently, right? I still want to look at epigenetics. I want to look at their genetic profile and see, what are the formulations of certain micronutrients that are going to be best taken up by your body? What does your genetics imply about your macronutrition? What does your sleep look like from both like a your reality and also your genetics? And looking at labs, are you deficient or insufficient in certain micronutrients? So really utilizing kind of the same methods regardless of where they are um, in their journey, whether they've had a kid or not. Um, Really, it's about the time and the patience that we can employ in doing the work, right? Someone who's maybe having their first kid is super healthy. Maybe they only need like that 3-month period to do the work, and I say 3 months. That's based on spermatogenesis, the amount of time that it takes for sperm to be created and get to where it needs to go. So when I talk about preconception health, I really am trying to focus on the couple, the male donor and the female donor. Because men are not just genetic donors, right? It's not just their data that's being transferred. It's, their behaviors and their health and their activity level and all of these things really do influence the success of conception and the health of the pregnancy and the health of the child. So it's not the woman alone doing all this work. Like, from my perspective, we need men in there doing the work alongside their partner in at least those 3 months, and really avoiding like negative exposures during that time period. Like, I've got a whole protocol for things that are really supportive of sperm health and quality, and things that really kind of detract. So I've totally derailed our conversation, but the work is pretty much the same, right?
Mm-hmm.
Foundational health, and then whatever specific individualized things need to happen for that couple. And really just the time frame and how much work needs to be done to get to that point of optimal health.
All right. So as you're talking about it, like something sprung to mind is what you said is like there's that 18-month period and like of recovery that allopathic says that's where it should be. And when you said that, it kind of made me think of like a sports analogy. So like you got like you go in sports, you kind of like work all year, you increase your skills, and eventually like you make it to the playoffs. You do like this big game, like it's all for like this one moment. And then from there,
Right.
you've got to recover. You've got to rest.
Yep.
You have to allow your
Rebuild.
body to just, yeah, like you said, rebuild itself. So that way, the next time you go out and do something that's that physically intense, you're capable of doing it, if not even better than previous time.
Yep. 100%.
Really like that. I've never put too much thought into that myself, but I really like that. So that's incredible. And we've talked about micronutrients, diet, nutrition, but I'd like to know more like female first. How do hormones play a role in this whole preconception health, and what exactly are the big ones that we need to optimize?
So I'm not a hormone expert. I will just
Mhm.
be super transparent about that. That said, there are lots of behaviors and health states that disrupt our hormone balance. So over exercising, right, inhibits ovulation. Having too low of body mass, our body isn't gonna want to reproduce if it feels like we're not, getting enough nutrition, right? So from that aspect, like anovulation and disrupted menses, just getting cycles regular again, and getting inflammation under control. That's a big piece, not only for just like mood, but for hormone regulation, for implantation, right? The uterus wants to be a very hospitable location. It wants to nurture. It wants to be this comforting place. And if you are engaging in lifestyle behaviors that are pro-inflammatory, then you are, making this environment less welcoming, and so success rates go down. We've seen that decreasing inflammation increases the rate of fertility and conception. So that's pretty cool. I have a client who, this is kind of drastic, but she had, connective tissue stuff and autoimmune stuff, and her fertility specialist put her on Lyrica, which is kind of like a nerve pain. This really surprised me, but it worked, decreased the inflammation, and she was able to conceive after several rounds of IVF. Like, lots of hard work on their end. So to say that hormones, getting cycle regularity, right? So if you when in your cycle you are more fertile, like that's the obvious one, but also just like hormone regulation for stress and sleep and all of those things that impact our foundational health. And there's so many things, so many like not advanced things that we can do to support our hormones. Our diets. Are you getting enough healthy fats? We need fat to make steroids, right? We need sleep. If you don't have enough sleep, that's gonna jack up your everything, right? Um, just eating a well-balanced diet, reducing stress, all of those things to bring hormones into balance. In terms of like specific hormones, I don't really look at the specifics. I'm looking kind of at the whole picture. And really, I'm getting outside, I'm getting medical director to have eyes on that to see, what needs to be influenced.
All right, so you're
And so
looking
much
to
of
make
it
sure
is
they're in a
also,
normal range.
yeah. And we've got, advanced assessments. We can do a Dutch test, look
Mhm.
cortisol, look at how the metabolites are actually breaking down. There's things that we can do to support GI health to make sure that, you are metabolizing those hormones and you're getting rid of the metabolites, the excess. We don't want it to recirculate. That messes with our hormones. It messes with our mood, um, with our everything. Supporting detoxification in general. Lots of stuff that we can do to support hormone balance.
All right. And you kind of just mentioned detoxification. So that's something that
Mm-hmm.
I feel like for the longest time had a bad rep because you'd get
Yeah,
gurus online saying, "Oh, just do this
doing a
and
detox.
do a detox, lose all this weight." Um, what does detoxification actually mean in your sense when you're having people improve their detoxification systems?
Yeah. So for me, I'm actually looking at the like physiological detoxification pathways. So we've got several different phases, right? We have phase one detox, which is essentially converting um, foreign and endogenous molecules into a water soluble form. So we're taking something and we're transmuting it so that it can be removed from the body. So water soluble format. We then phase two have several different processes, and one of them is to actually, grab onto that molecule, make a complex out of it, and then phase three is elimination, where we're actually getting it out of the body. Elimination as sweat, urine, bowel movements, that weird stuff that comes up on your tongue when you're sick, right? Those are all ways to detoxify. So when we're talking about detoxification, I'm not talking about like drinking green juices for 7 days and only, whatever. There's lots of different ways that people focus on their health in terms of detoxification. But when I'm talking about it, like I'm looking at your genetics, I'm looking at your glutathione pathways, I'm looking at the enzymes, catalase, and all of these different components of the detoxification system. And how do we support the detoxification system? Hydration, sleep, nutrition, making sure you actually have the raw resources that are required in all of those different pathways. Vitamin C is a big one. Selenium is a big one. B vitamins are vital in like every pathway in the body. That's an overstatement, but you get what I'm saying. So focusing on detoxification from the actual physiological sense, from my perspective, I am very much grounded in the science. I'm adjacent to a lot of the traditional methodologies like Ayurveda and Chinese medicine. They have their own frameworks for dealing with detoxification. And I utilize a lot of those aspects, but from my perspective, I am sitting in, the PubMed, the research, and anatomy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that is what's making functional medicine such a potent force nowadays. It's you kind of borrow from like traditional medicine, Ayurvedic
Mm-hmm.
medicine, and see how it applies to like allopathic care. Like, what is that meshing of it, which I think is amazing that people like yourself are utilizing like these ancient techniques and knowledge that you don't really hear about in modern medicine, but they've got thousands of years of, oh, this works in
Right.
all these different groups of people. So I love that. And you mentioned a lot on like you check for genetics. What
Mm-hmm.
are So like you are a certified genetic coach, or is it epigenetics coach?
Epigenetics coach.
Okay.
So
What
we're
exactly?
talking about, yeah, go ahead, sir.
I was just going to ask you, like, what exactly is epigenetics?
So epigenetics is looking at, and this is said all the time, right? But what does it actually mean? How the genes are expressed, right? So think about your genetic blueprint. It's not changeable, right? This is a fixed data point. Our genetics, think of it like the hardware, or like think of it like a recipe, right?
Mhm.
So we have the recipe that's written down. Okay, well, what if I don't have eggs on hand? So I'm going to make a flax egg, or I'm going to use some sort of substitute. That's where like the epigenetics, there's the recipe, there's the genetics. The epigenetics is like the results, the cookies that you're trying to bake. And in between there is like, how are the genes actually being read? Are there differences in, I've got a, I'm not going to go there, but there's been a lot of discussion about genetics in the podcast world recently, and I'm not going to get into the things that they've been talking about because it kind of irritates me. But say I've got a swap for COMT, right? So the most desirable one is probably an AG. That's kind of like our mid place where we're able to clear our neurotransmitters, metabolize them, break them down, whatever, in kind of like a moderate way. And then on one end or the other, we've got folks who clear their neurotransmitters really quickly. And we've got people who they kind of build up because it takes longer for them to clear. So the genetics is just, I've got COMT, and the epigenetics is like, okay, well, I clear it really fast, so this stuff doesn't bother me, or I don't clear it really fast. My neurotransmitters build up and I am highly anxious. So it's kind of like the different flavors of genetics. That makes sense.
Yeah. No, I get it. And it's like another way, like I've talked to clients about is like they hear all the sciences stuff, like COMT, how different things affect you. And it's basically like how everyone is unique. Like taking
Yep.
something that's become popular lately, I would say Gary Brecker popularized it, was like the whole folic acid thing. And
That's the
that's,
thing I didn't want to talk about.
well, now I want to know a little bit more on your opinions on it. Cause like he's talking about how the MTFR gene is responsible for turning folic acid into folate, which is usable by the body, and how many people can't or have this gene where they can't convert folic acid and it causes other issues. What is your view on?
So a lot of this stuff, like, yeah, I agree on a lot of this stuff. And I didn't listen to the whole podcast because
Mhm.
I just got too many podcasts right now. But I agree with a lot of what he had to say. However, I think that he just like doesn't have the big picture in mind. Like, we have this tendency in the health space to like focus in on one thing instead of looking at everything in concert, right? So I do agree that there are folks out there who have a harder time with folic acid. I think that um, folic acid supplementation in our foods has been a huge public health success in terms of spina bifida and some of these birth defects. And also, like, if you are able to, then I think it makes way more sense to take folic, take take folate in the form that is best for your body. And I'm very grateful. It's a privilege to be able to have this genetic data and to say, yeah, no, I'm one of those people who can't do folic acid. I'm going to shift over here. And I'm going to be very wary about, foods that are fortified with folic acid. Um, and also, like, everything goes back to the foundations, right? We need to be getting as much as we can from real food. So we get most of our nutrition and our nourishment from foods in their most original state. Um, then we don't have to have conversations about supplementation and food fortification. Just eat real food. And I will also say that it is a privilege to be able to access, organic whole foods on the regular.
Mhm.
I definitely, yes, that is a huge privilege.
I agree. It's definitely something like I feel way more privileged now living in like Austin versus like rural Pennsylvania, where like it was all just like mom and pop grocery stores, and like the big grocery stores were mostly
Mhm.
just they didn't care. There was just like Walmart, and you get all this generic shit, and all the organic stuff was like double the price and very
Yep.
small selections of it. So I agree with you. It's definitely a privilege. But I want to ask one more thing on this whole genetics topic. Like we
Mhm.
hear about epigenetics, we hear about genetics testing, and like if you ever taken like 23andMe or Ancestry, like they give you access to like a bunch of these traits. And I did that, I think it was like $10 with Ancestry. And it gives me a bunch of these traits like, oh, you're someone that needs to get X amount of sleep for optimal function. Or you carry the trait
Mm.
for wet earwax, which I thought was
Yeah.
irrelevant.
Right.
But it gave me all this information, like as an adult, I kind of already knew about. But I feel like that's like surface level trait stuff. What kind
Yeah.
of genetics testing do you offer? And how can people use that information to increase their own health?
That is a beautiful question and one I love to answer. So great that you brought up like 23andMe and Ancestry. So they are looking, yeah, they're looking at your ancestry. They are not necessarily looking at anything that is actionable. So we've got things like the direct to consumer genetics over here, 23andMe, Ancestry. We also have medical genetics. That's like its own world. And then we've got kind of this lane over here where I sit. Um, and first of all, what's the difference between like medical genetics and epigenetics? Medical genetics is really looking at mutations. So those are changes in genetics that are occurring in less than 1% of the population. When we're looking at epigenetics, we are looking at variations within normal. So our genetic commonalities is something like 99 plus percent. So we're looking at that very, very small difference in our single poly. I'm losing it. SNPs,
Polymorphisms? Oh,
single
polysnips?
nucleotide polymorphisms. Thanks. So these variations are normal. Um, and the coolest thing about this is that what we're doing over here versus like 23andMe is that these are actionable, right? For micronutrition and nutrition, it's giving you, what is the best form of fat for my body? Do I need to minimize my fat intake? Can I be more liberal from a genetic standpoint on micronutrition, right? Do I have an increased need for things like omega-3s or choline? Do I need specific formats of vitamin Bs, B vitamins, or, you know, am I at decreased ability to, take up vitamin D from my diet, or, all of these different things. I think one of the things that I really like to look at for preconception is this issue with vitamin A conversion. So if you take beta carotene, it has to be converted into an active form of vitamin A. So beta carotene comes from plants. Active vitamin A is typically found in animals. So if I'm working like a vegetarian or a vegan, we need to be very careful, because if they have this decreased conversion, they can eat all the carrots in the world, but they're not going to get enough active vitamin A. And that's huge in pregnancy. It's huge in, health and immune system and longevity. Um, so I think that the genetics are super valuable in just saying, this is what's going to be best for me. And with the knowledge that, we still have to do all the experimentation. Just because the genetics say this is all still risk analysis. It's still, propensity, predisposition. It's not deterministic, like maybe some of the medical genetics. Um, so looking at, I have this variation of normal. It says that I'm at increased likelihood for, insulin resistance. That gives me the data. It gives me the motivation to really tailor my lifestyle to, be proactive against these things that may come up for me down the road. ApoE, 4 allele, that's a huge one that we talk about in terms of aging risk. And we know that given certain lifestyle behaviors, you can reduce your risk down to someone who doesn't have an ApoE4 allele. And I realized that I didn't really give a huge explainer on that, but ApoE4 occurs in about 25% of the population, and it increases risk for cardiovascular disease and neurodegenerative disease as well. And it's highly studied. We've got camps out there who like don't want to know if they have this genetic variant because they don't believe that it's actionable. And I'm over here on the other side, and I say the more information that you have, the better decisions you can make. You know, the more metrics you can measure, right? Why would we not want to know this? It surprises me.
Yeah, I'm in some middle camp. I got my genetics tested. I have that ApoE4 gene, and so like I know that that puts me at a higher risk for, again, cardiovascular and cognitive disorders as I get older. And a lot of the things that they say, or one of the biggest things that they say, is like try to reduce your saturated fat intake when you have this gene.
Mm-hmm.
However, I got that gene, started to incorporate that more into my lifestyle. I cut back on the saturated fats, but I noticed that I had other negatives when I did that. Like I felt fantastic, like nothing was bothering me. Skin was in great health. And then I got that. I was like, all right, let me experiment with this. Let me see about implementing different protocols into being aware of that. And then I started reducing my saturated fat intake. And I started noticing more dry skin, like more dandruff, and just lower symptoms of lower testosterone. I'm still in good testosterone, like how I feel with it. But I thought that was so odd. It's like I felt worse doing that. And it's like I have this. So like now I need to figure out this trade-off of how much saturated fat is optimal amounts for feeling and looking my best versus mitigating the risk of cardiovascular disease and Alzheimer's as we age.
Yeah, the here versus the later.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's where someone like you would be amazing at helping people. So it's like you would understand that. How would you, someone comes to you, they have this genetic variant, how would you tell them to approach this?
So I want to look at labs. Like the genetics, that's your predisposition or whatever. It's your genetic blueprint, but it's not necessarily what is actually happening in your reality. So I do want to look at what's actually happening, and I want to look at labs. For ApoE34 or 44, I want to look at the advanced lipids. I don't really care what your total cholesterol is. I want to know what the actual atherogenic particles are saying. If they are, in a healthy, beautiful range, then whatever you're doing is working for you right now. And if you're experiencing adverse effects from changing your diet in that way, and your labs look great, then there's no reason to restrict to that level. So using data to really dial this stuff in and tracking over time. This isn't just like a one and done thing. This is a constant communication, tweaking your protocols, your recommendations, and using a lot of, maybe that's DEXA scans, maybe that's CGM, maybe that's if you want to get really advanced, go into like some of the cancer screenings, or we have so many tools at our disposal to track where people are at. And I really firmly believe the adage, like, it doesn't get measured, nothing changes, right? You gotta get the data.
Yeah, and I think overall the biggest approach that I think functional medicine has, and something you are offering with everyone, is no blanket statements. Your health is you. It's not the average of 10,000 people and put into a chart for a doctor to look at for 2 minutes and just say, hey, you're within average, you're good to go, regardless of how you're feeling. So I love your approach. And I think that's a wonderful place to end this. I appreciate your time so much, Abby. I'm still going to be bugging you with questions whenever I see you. I love talking with you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So Abby, can you just give me a short plug on like where people can find you, how they can get a hold of you, especially if for any
Yeah.
other reasons, really?
So my email address is Abby, ABBY, at handwellness.com. My private practice. I do coaching and preconception work through Hand Wellness. I also work very closely with Kuya Medical in Austin. If you're around, come say hi. It's a beautiful space. And that's where I'm doing a lot of the terzepatide stuff, more of the kind of like advanced stuff that requires a medical director. That falls under Kuya, as does the genetics right now. So if you're interested in epigenetics, some more kind of advanced coaching, Kuya is definitely the place to be. And even if you're not, Kuya is still the place to be.
I agree with
And
that
then
100%.
preconception, right? We're a little biased, but coaching, like general coaching and preconception specific stuff, I usually do through Hand Wellness. And then I've got other projects in the works too. So you can find me everywhere. I'm not super active on social media right now, but you can find me on Instagram at Abbey Hand MSN. Maybe on Facebook too, but I haven't really checked for a while. So
Perfect. I will put all of that information in the show notes so that way anyone can access you, send you an email, reach out to you via.
come find me, ask me questions, engage in a conversation. Let's share information.
I want to hold you to that.
Yeah, I know. Maybe a little slow to respond, but I will respond.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Abby. I appreciate you taking
Thanks,
the time to
Greg.
talk to me.
Yeah, it's an honor.
If you're anything like me, you definitely got a ton of knowledge out of that podcast. I love Abby. She is so amazing. And she's one of the few people that I know in real life that I can't just stump. I ask her questions all the time because she is just a wealth of knowledge and has tons of experience with everything she's doing. And so if you want to get a hold of her, I'll put all her contact information in the show notes. So check that out. And if you want to get a hold of me, looking more into the Immortality Project, go to Facebook, go to the Immortality Project, like the page, and check out the live trainings I'm doing twice a week, as well as the community workouts. And don't forget, head on over to Instagram and follow me on social medias at Get Great Drake on Instagram and X, formerly known as Twitter. And I'll see you all next week. You guys have a wonderful day. I love you all. And remember, get great health.
There's a little bit of madness to my method. Many falling off that fine line that I'm treading. I risk anything to be great, and I'm not letting.